Hey, good weekend to you. Welcome to Leading Edge. Good to have you along. I'm Jerry Anderson. It's just about here, Election Day 2021. Although people have been early voting, let's face it, for several weeks now. And on this last weekend before Election Day, Leading Edge welcomes both candidates for mayor of Toledo. Let's start with incumbent Mayor Wade Kapszukiewicz. Incumbents, Mayor, as you know, have the weight of running on their records, a position that you seem to clearly relish. But let's see, unemployment is higher than it was when you took office. You trumpet street resurfacing for this past year, but the previous year, your baseline of, what did you say, the 7 streets or something, an embarrassingly low number, happened on your watch. 61 people died prematurely, premature deaths in 2020, murdered on your watch. That number is likely to be eclipsed this year. Why would voters want more of that?
Well, Toledo is not a perfect city. There is no perfect city. Goodness knows we still have our challenges. And I know that we'll be talking about some of those challenges perhaps, during this conversation. But generally speaking, the measure of any incumbent running for re-election, I think, is 2 things. 1, is the community better off than it was 4 years ago? And 2, did that candidate keep his promises? And on both scores, I think Toledoans would answer the question, yes, we are better off than we were 4 years ago. And yes, I've kept my promises. And here's what I mean. On economic development, we are winning awards that this city has never won before. When you look at the major Southwick, how many years was Southwick vacant and abandoned? How many years was Northtown vacant and abandoned? We've developed both of them in the last year. The Marina project for years sat empty, the textile leather site, all of these projects for literally over a decade, nothing positive was happening. Under my watch, we have come in and developed them and frankly, won the most prestigious award any city can win for economic development. And we had never won the Governor's Cup Award before this year. That's progress. The budget is in a better place than it was 4 years ago. When I came into office, we had a $3 million deficit. And after my first year, we had turned that into a surplus. I promised that I would increase the size of the police force, even though it had declined for the 12 years prior to becoming mayor. We've done that.
All right, I want to jump in there because you keep trumpeting, and it is true, you increase the size of the police department. But as those numbers go up, so do the number of murders in our town. Maybe our approach is somehow off kilter. And if you tell me we need to get people jobs, anybody who wants a job these days can have a job. If you don't believe me, folks, let's just take a drive around town and count the help wanted signs. So what's out of whack with more cops and yet more murders?
Anyone who thinks that this is a problem that is only happening in Toledo just is not watching the national news and is unaware of what's happening in our country. Literally every big city in every country, in this country, has seen a spike in violence over the last 18 months. It is clearly related to the pandemic. It's one of the unintended consequences of what we're going through. Doesn't make it any easier. And yes, I know I'm not the mayor of any other city. I'm the mayor of Toledo. But to separate it out from what's happening in our country, I think is a bit unfair. It's a complex issue. There's no question. It involves complex solutions. But whatever those solutions are, I think we could all agree that it doesn't involve laying off police officers. My opponent laid off 75 police officers the last time he was mayor. Is the only mayor since the Great Depression to do so. Now, he will say that, well, times were tough. I had to do it. Well, I went through a recession, too, as mayor. The difference is priorities. During tough times, he laid off cops. During tough times, I managed to increase the size.
Just a couple minutes to go
here.
There's
more we have to do. There's no doubt.
In the debate, you said you were very proud of police reform on your watch, yet the very commission, big commission, that you named walked away frustrated. They were on our show, said so, couldn't get to things like citizen review boards with subpoena power or keeping officers' records from being wiped clean of their missteps every couple of years. Those who wanted real reform tell me they didn't get it from you.
Well, I would disagree with that. Before that commission was ever formed, we unilaterally implemented more reform than most every other city in this country. We moved internal affairs from the safety building, where it had been for 80 years, into a neutral site, so folks could feel more comfortable reporting a violation if they think it occurred. We outlawed, wearing camouflage and some of these militaristic tools that make make it seem like there's an occupying force as opposed to citizens protecting us. The training we give our officers on use of force, de-escalation techniques, implicit bias, we've been doing that for years. Now it's open to the public, so the public transparently can see what we're doing. Now when a police officer interacts with a citizen, he or she has to leave behind a card with his name and badge number and a phone number to report if there's a need to do that. That's real reform, and we did that unilaterally within the first month. Now we started that committee to see if we could do more, and they did find consensus on some issues, and we are implementing that as well. And if they can find consensus on other issues, we'll implement that. But to say that we have done no police reform is totally inaccurate. I would argue we've done more than 95% of the cities in this country, and we did it unilaterally, and I'm proud of it.
All right, you guys had a big debate or a big difference the other night. And on this one, can I have a real short answer? Who should pay for pre-K programs?
I think the private sector should pay for pre-K to the extent that that's possible. And philanthropy has certainly caused that to happen. Right now, There are 200 kids in our community, 4-year-olds, who are getting pre-K that didn't get it before, and it's exclusively paid for by the private sector. We need to continue to build the Hope Toledo program and see if it can sustain itself. We need to make sure our kids are educated.
All right, we're done for time. We could go on and on, but we don't have time. He is Wade Kapszukiewicz. He covets your vote on Tuesday as he seeks to be reelected mayor of the great city of Toledo. Mr. Mayor, thanks for your time.
Thank you.
When I come back, his challenger joins us on Leading Edge.